is called to order. I would like to ask Mr. Majority Leader, please, to...
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that we adopt this legislative session agenda dated September 1st, 2015. And then when we get to motions, I will be moving each bill one by one.
Thank you very much on that motion. No objections. So ordered. I would like to ask Senator St. Nicholas if you can lead us in prayer, and then Senator Frank Uggan if you can lead us with the recitation of the Inifresi.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, we all saw last night what happened yesterday at the intersection with the family and with the child, and it shook all of us to our core, Lord. Our island has so many issues, and we try to deal with them as best we can in here as it relates to the laws that we can make to improve our community. But when we see things like that, it just reminds us that there is so much more work to be done, and there is so many innocent children that need us to do what's right, and they need us to do it resolutely and bravely. They need us to not be afraid. So many people, Lord, were afraid, and rightfully so. We all get paralyzed by fear when we see things that are just beyond our comprehension. But we need you to send your Spirit upon us and make us brave and not allow us to be afraid, especially when it comes to protecting children, not just when they're in danger physically, but when they are in need of what we can do from a policy perspective or anything else that we can do. We need you to give us courage, Lord. We need your Spirit to come upon us and strengthen us and give us the resolve. And our entire island needs that, Heavenly Father. And so I ask that you send your Spirit down upon us here today, not just in this hall, but upon this whole island. And help us to find the answers, help us to find the courage, help us to remember that there are so many innocents that are relying on the actions that we take in our daily lives. And we ask this in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Senator Frank Uggan in the recitation of Inifresi. Mataku dikine soko, imastakulum dikirasano, zanimastide nanesinahu, who fresin maisetu, parabahu protehi, jahu defendi, ihienengi, ikutura, ilengwahi, I-airi, ihanum danitano chamorro, niren shakku diretu dinestu ustaha, esti huafit nagihihiludiria, danibanderahu, ibanderen wahan. Senator Frank Blas, if you can please lead us in the singing of the Guam hymn in Chamorro, and Senator McCready in the singing of the national anthem. Representatives. Can the clerks please take roll call?
Senator Tom Atta. Senator Tony Atta. Senator Uggan. Senator Blas. Vice Speaker Cruz. Senator Espaldon. Senator McCready. Senator Morrison. Senator Munya Barnes. Senator Respicio. Senator Rodriguez. Senator San Nicolas. Senator Torres. Senator Underwood. Speaker Wampat. Madam Speaker, there is a quorum.
Thank you very much. Mr. Majority Leader, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move that we approve the legislative journal dated August 27, 2015, subject to corrections.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
Madam Speaker, there are communications and petitions, and I move that they be appended to a session journal,
No objection, so ordered.
as well as messages from Magalan, Guahan. I move that they be appended to a session journal,
So ordered.
as well as reports of standing committees. I move for the same.
So ordered.
Madam Speaker, there are no reports of select committees at this time. And on item 12, I move that under the introduction and first reading of bills, resolutions, and certificates, that bill numbers 165-33LS through 167-33LS, bill numbers 168-33COR to 170-33COR, resolution number 172-33LS, and certificate number 71-33LS all be given its first reading.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In my first motion, I move that any resolution or certificate in commendatory or condolence in nature that's introduced for the duration of this call to session period, that it be automatically adopted, and that all co-sponsors that all senators be co-sponsors, and that they work with the legal counsel and the clerk in the preparation of these documents.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
And Madam Speaker, at this time, I'd like to move the following bills to be on the second reading file. As you know and our colleagues know, these are bills that have been discussed prior, and it could have been on the August session agenda. However, because of the budget deliberations, we decided just to provide for this opportunity after the budget session. I want to thank you for this call to session and move the following bills. All of our colleagues participated in the development of this session agenda. They all have a list of the things I'm going to read. And the things I'm going to read, if they've been adopted, they will be posted online so that our people can follow and monitor the discussions before them. And so the first bill, Madam Speaker, is bill number 57-33, as substituted by the Committee on Transportation, Infrastructure, Lands, Border Protection, Veterans Affairs, and Procurement, introduced by Senator Frank Blas Jr. And it's an act to add subsection F to various sections of the code, allowing municipal planning councils to review projects proposed to the Guam Land Use Commission and to authorize the Director of the Department of Land Management to include the mayors in their zoning and construction forms. I move this be placed in the second reading file.
No objection, so ordered.
The next bill is bill number 95-33, sponsored by Senator San Nicolas, and it's an act to amend various sections of the code relative to addressing overcrowding at the Department of Corrections due to the detainee population by authorizing the use of bail bonds for court-ordered bail and to authorize the Judiciary of Guam to establish a uniform bail schedule. And this act shall be cited as the Bail Reform Act of 2015.
No objections, so ordered.
Thank you. The next bill number is 97-33COR, introduced by Senator Tony Atta and others, and it's an act relative to amending certain section of the code to require the issuance of salvage title certificates of ownership for vehicles transferred to insurance companies as a result of payment of claims for total loss.
No objections, so ordered.
The next bill, Madam Speaker, is bill number 112-33COR, introduced by Vice Speaker Cruz, and it's an act to amend various sections of the code relative to authorizing the Magalan Guahan to sell lot number B, tract 111, located in the municipality of Tamuning. I move this be placed in the second reading file.
No objections, so ordered.
The next bill number is 115-33COR, as substituted by the Committee on Health, Economic Development, Homeland Security, and Senior Citizens, introduced by Senator Rodriguez and other senators, an act to amend certain sections of the code relative to providing assisted outpatient treatment services to persons with certain mental illnesses, which shall be known as the Baby Alexia Law.
No objection, so ordered.
The next bill number is 118-33COR, as amended by the Committee on Transportation, Infrastructure, Lands, Border Protection, Veterans Affairs, and Procurement, introduced by Senator Barnes, an act to authorize the sale of a bull cart trail in Barrigada that runs through and ends between properties that are owned by the same landowner.
No objection, so ordered.
Thank you. The next bill is 122-33COR, introduced by Senator Barnes, an act to appropriate funds from fiscal year 2014 hotel occupancy tax surplus fund to the Guam Visitors Bureau.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
The next bill, number 123-33COR, introduced by Senator Ruggan, an act to amend certain sections of the code relative to expanding the powers of the magistrate judge.
Hearing no objections, so ordered.
The next bill number is 126-33COR, also introduced by Senator Frank Guggen, an act to amend various sections of the code relative to authorizing the Government of Guam employees to join the Volunteer Deputy Marshal Reserve Program.
Hearing no objections, so ordered.
The next bill number is 128-33COR, introduced by Senator Blas and Senator Espaldon, and it's an act to create an act to add a new Chapter 1704 GCA relative to the creation of the Catastrophic Leave Pool Act of 2015.
Hearing no objections, so ordered.
The next bill number is 138-33COR, introduced by Senator Tom Atta, an act to amend various sections of the code relative to federal excess land zoning to provide clarity and maintain uniformity on all zone change processes.
Hearing no objections, so ordered.
Next bill number is 140-33COR, also introduced by Senator Tom Atta. It's an act to amend various sections of the code relative to legislative approval for agricultural land use.
Hearing no objections, so ordered.
And Bill 99-33, introduced by Senator McCready. It's an act to add a new Article 7 of Chapter 80 of Title 9 GCA relative to establishing a hormone or anti-androgen pilot treatment program for persons convicted of sex crimes.
On the motion, no objections, so ordered. Thank you very much, Senator. On legislative, anything on legislative concurrence? You need a recess? Okay, brief recess. The legislature is back. Senator Speaker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We have one legislative concurrence from your Committee on Education, and it's on the appointment of Rosemary A. Clement to serve as a member of the KGTF PBS Board of Trustees. With your committee's recommendation to confirm, I move that this be placed in the voting file.
No objection, so ordered.
And there are no other legislative concurrences or consent calendar.
Thank you very much, Senator. We are now then on the second reading file, and I'd like to recognize Senator Frank Blas, Jr. on Bill number 57-33.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'd like to move Bill number 57-33 LS as substituted by the committee. to the third reading, but I also like an opportunity to speak to it, please.
You may proceed, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, what the bill proposes to provide is the opportunity for the municipal planning councils of the different villages to be actively engaged or have an active part in the determination or in the discussion of changing of zone changes, looking at variance applications or government leases involving land within their districts. This came as a result of discussions with various mayors and municipal planning council members that while there is a process and there is some notification given to them by the Guam Land Use Commission and the Department of Land Management of applications, for different variances or the zone changes and stuff. For the most part, their input is, for lack of a better term, relegated to the public comment. What I would like to see in this bill as proposed is that they are not only given that opportunity to review it, but they're also given an opportunity to participate and to provide input into a formal input in the form of an MPC resolution on the project itself or the application of the variance. Madam Speaker, the members of the Municipal Planning Council represent the community that they live in the different villages. They know best in as far as how different, a zone variance or the construction of a facility or the different things in as far as construction activity goes in their villages, how it affects their villages. Take, for example, my village, in the village of Barragata. I think most of, not all, the members of the Municipal Planning Council knows that, basically water in our village runs in two different places. And as a result of this, we have to be very mindful and be very wary of how we change the topography and how these zone variances or these zone changes can affect the topography in those areas. And so they can provide valuable input into that discussion, into the deliberation as to whether a variance should be or the current zone should be changed. This will help to alleviate many of the problems that could exist, primarily in the area of flooding in the villages. This gives them that opportunity to provide that valuable input into this deliberation and into the final decision as to whether or not these changes can be made. So with that, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank the committee, and I want to thank the chairman of the committee, the good senator from Manila, for basically providing what was an idea to a better idea. I want to be proffered to the members of this body. And so I ask my colleagues for their support on this. Again, it gives the MPC the opportunity to provide valuable input into processes, into matters that come before the Guam Land Use Commission. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome, Senator. On the motion? There being none, so on the motion to send 57-33 to the third reading file without any objections, so ordered. Senator Anthony Ada, you recognize on, oh no, I'm so sorry. It's 95. 95, Senator Mike Nicholas, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Bill 95 is pretty extensive, so if I may be afforded an opportunity to just kind of introduce it, but set it aside afterwards so that the members of the body can read through it once again, and we can move on to the remainder of the bills on the agenda for today.
Okay, so you will let me know when you're ready then, so I'll just set it aside. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Senator then Tony Ada, you're recognized on 97-33.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I request that 9733 be moved on to the third reading file. I'd like to speak on it briefly, please.
You may proceed, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, what Bill 9733 is an act to amend Section 7117 of 16 GCA, and this is relative to requiring the issue of salvage title certificates of ownership for vehicles transferred to insurance companies as a result of the payment of claims for a total loss. And what this does, Madam Speaker, is that the bill requires the Department of Revenue and Taxation to issue salvage titles to be to vehicles that have been designated by insurance company as unfeasible to repair, or in other words, a total loss. And in cases where an insurance company determines that the vehicle is not feasible to be repaired, such vehicles shall be issued a salvage title by the Department of Revenue and Taxation. When insurance companies determine that a car is totaled and pays out the full insured value of the car, it requires the insured to sign over the title to the car, and then the insurance company usually sells the remnants of the car for parts. And all too often, though, we see that there are shops out there that are able to pound out the dents and, put a nice fresh coat of paint and get the engine running. And then after that, what they try to do is sell these vehicles at either below Blue Book value or at Blue Book value. And in no time, in many cases, is the buyer informed that of the history of the repairs on the vehicles. And, what we don't want is any unsuspecting buyer to find out the hard way that a vehicle has been deemed totaled and salvaged, and yet they bought the vehicle and then their loved one gets into an accident and something catastrophic happens to them. And what this bill does, Madam Speaker, is that it doesn't prevent the selling of the salvaged vehicles. It just says that the buyer has a right to be informed as to that the vehicle was salvaged at one point in time. And I kindly ask my colleagues for their support on this measure. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome, Senator. On the motion, is there anyone who'd like to speak on Bill 97? There being none, on the motion to send 97-33 through the third reading file without any objections, so ordered. Bill number 99-33, Senator, oh no, wait a minute, that was supposed to be at the bottom. So sorry, they misplaced that. Bill number 112. Mr. Vice Speaker, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I move Bill 112. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I move that Bill 112 be placed on third reading file and ask for an opportunity to speak on it.
You may proceed.
Madam Speaker, instead of hearing what I believe the bill is, I think it'd be best if I read the letter that was submitted by the Director of Land Management on the bill. And it goes as follows. The Department of Land Management supports Bill 112-33, which amends Public Law 21-14 that authorized David and Dolores Tuncup to purchase Lot B, Track 111, which is adjacent to their existing property in Tamuning. Because the period of time taken to complete requirements of Public Law 21-14 had expired, the Department of Land Management was unable to finalize the land sale and issue a quitclaim deed. This bill modifies the law to permit the closure of this land sale. The Department of Land Management also coordinated with the Department of Public Works Rights of Way Division to ensure that the land purchased by the Tuncups is not part of the land needed for the expansion of Epow Road. This lot is not required for the road development. Additionally, the Tuncups paid in full the amount identified by the appraisals. We therefore ask that this bill be favorably reported out of committee and passed by this legislature. With that, Madam Speaker, I ask for my colleagues' support.
Thank you, and that is also part of the committee report. Is there anyone who would like to speak on Bill 112-33? 33? There being none, so to send 112-33 to the third reading file without any objections. So ordered. Bill number 115-33, Senator Rodriguez, you're recognized.
Thank you. Hafaday, good morning, Madam Speaker. I move to place Bill 115-33 as substituted on the third reading. Be allowed to briefly speak on it.
You may proceed, Senator.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, first of all, I'd like to thank the co-sponsors, the 11 other co-sponsors of this measure. This is a bill that's relative to providing assisted outpatient treatment services to persons with certain mental illnesses, which shall be known as the Baby Alexia Law. And Madam Speaker, if I may, just briefly explain what assisted outpatient treatment is. It is something that it is a treatment plan that is practiced in practically all U.S. states as an extension of inpatient treatment, while allowing the qualified patient with a treatable mental illness or condition to receive court-ordered treatment on an outpatient basis. It is also known in some states as outpatient commitment. Assisted outpatient treatment recipients are hospitalized at less than half the rate they were hospitalized in the 6 months prior to receiving this type of treatment. And when they are hospitalized, the length of stay is greatly shortened. The continued treatment and management of the patient's condition on an outpatient basis has also been determined to greatly reduce incidents of violence and arrest. Without assisted outpatient treatment, the patient's conditions often deteriorates directly due to this lack of treatment and compliance with their medication treatment plan. It took an unfortunate act because of the cracks in our mental health care system to raise our people's level of awareness that we too are seriously in need of this kind of program. Leading the nation, when New York City established Kendra's Law, it took the tragic death of Miss Kendra Webdale, a young woman who died in January 1999 after being pushed in front of a New York City subway train by a person who was not receiving treatment for his mental illness. On Guam, Madam Speaker, we had the recent case, which was sometime last year, of a 10-month-old baby. Her name was Alexia, beautiful little girl, being punched in the face while in the arms of her mother under similar circumstances by a person not receiving treatment for her mental illness. The consequences of untreated mental illness are as apparent as they are devastating. Homelessness, criminalization, suicide, violence, victimization, lost productivity, permanently decreased medication responses, and the cost of unnecessary suffering. Due to advances in recent years, treatment is now available that can eliminate or substantially alleviate the symptoms of mental illness for most of who suffer from it. People with treated mental illness can now reclaim their lives in the community. But first, there must be treatment. Treatment voluntarily embraced is always preferred. However, mental illness is biologically based disease that attacks the brain and often renders many people incapable of voluntarily entering treatment because they are unable to make rational decisions or unaware that they are ill. When this occurs, such people may require assisted treatment to protect their lives as well as avoid tragic personal and societal consequences. This act, Madam Speaker, is designed to be the legal framework for the provision of care to individuals who, due to the symptoms of severe mental illness, become either dangerous or incapable of making informed medical decisions concerning their treatment. It will provide for a missing but necessary treatment component in our mental health care system by creating a flexible mechanism that can be used to secure treatment for those who most need it while still distinguishing those from whom intervention is inappropriate. Also vital are the strict and plentiful safeguards which this act establishes to protect both the rights and well-being of those subject to it. And so, Madam Speaker, before closing on this, I'd just like to also recognize the work that went into this effort. It was the professionals over at the Guam Behavior Health and Wellness Center. Also, they had an intern there, Mika Balahaja, who was a nurse intern, who was tasked to work with us, to work with this group of professionals and my office to come up with this type of legislation. And as I said earlier, it really took an unfortunate incident like the one we saw, that little baby girl that was punched in the face, and it was highly publicized. We know that the perpetrator was someone who was suffering from mental illness. And at first, my first reaction, like many in the community, Madam Speaker, was anger. Was anger and was disgust of what we saw on TV, on social media. But that quickly, at least for myself, turned into how can we help this lady, this perpetrator? How can we help others who are in similar situation? And I know that one component of this that was talked about in the public hearing and also in the community is, well, what about the cost? Well, just like in anything else we do, when we maintain something, when we maintain an individual who we know has a mental illness, it is cheaper. It's better for us to be able to monitor this person's progress rather than just to leave this person out. And when this person's mental illness gets worse, that's a time that our system right now, the way it works, that's the time our system comes in and steps in. And sometimes it's too late. You have incidents like what happened to this baby girl, and incidents in the States like Kendra in New York, that it took her death to highlight the need to provide this type of treatment plan in our society. And so, Madam Speaker, again, I thank our colleagues, you being one of them, who co-sponsored this, and I ask our other colleagues to please support this, because it is supported by the department, supported by the Attorney General, and I believe it's supported by the community, and it's something that is really a crack in the healthcare system that we need to implement moving forward. So thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
You're very welcome. Mr. Vice Speaker, on the motion.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise in support of this. As you may know, I devoted my entire life to the protection of children, and especially after this morning's prayer, I couldn't not support this. I just want to place on the record that the fiscal note that was submitted to us from BBMR, and I'm glad that the sponsor talked about cost. The BBMR submitted a fiscal note that said this would have no impact on the department's budget. I just wanted to place that on the record, that it was BBMR that said that it was zero all the way through on additional cost. And so I'm hoping that that is correct. I'm not rising in opposition. I just want to place on the record, as the appropriations chair, that the fiscal note said that there was no fiscal impact on this. And I'm hoping that we don't get a huge jump in the appropriation request for next year as a result of it. But I rise in support of the bill because I want to protect our children too.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Speaker, for that information. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on 115? Senator, do you want to close or want to send it down?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you very much to our good Vice Speaker for his support. And yes, that's what the fiscal note had come back with, and I even questioned it and spoke with BBMR afterwards, because we know that it's not zero. There's going to be some sort of impact, whether it be positive or negative. But in introducing this Bill 115, Madam Speaker, there was a companion legislation that we already passed, which was Bill 116, which was to finally get the fee schedule moving and get them to start billing and collecting. And so, if there is that impact, I'm not saying it's going to cover the whole thing, but there was a recognition that by doing this, we also have to move the department forward in making them being able to charge for other services and for them to start collecting the fees that are due to them. So again, I want to thank my colleagues, and thank you also, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity.
You're welcome, Senator. So on the motion to send 115-33 to the third reading file, hearing no objections, so ordered. Bill number 118, Senator Tina Rose Munoz-Barnes, you're recognized.
Situos Masi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, may I move Bill 118-33 COR, substituted by the Committee on Transportation, Infrastructure, Lands, Border Protection, Veterans Affairs, and Procurement to the third reading, and if I can just briefly discuss it.
You may proceed, Senator.
Situos Masi Tatlu, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Bill 118 is a very simple measure. A Bucart Trail runs between several lots owned by Our Lady of Peace Memorial Planning and ends in these properties. Because the Bucart Trail no longer serves a function, the owner of the lots on both sides would like to purchase the Bucart Trail and consolidate its properties. This Bucart Trail, Madam Speaker, is only 204 square meters. I want to note for the record that 2 appraisals have been completed at the expense of Our Lady of Peace Memorial Plan and have been submitted to this committee. Historically, Madam Speaker, on Guam, Bucart trails were common, and but with today, with more established roadways and properly recorded easements, Bucart trails are not as necessary, especially in the situation where the trail is situated between the properties owned by the same individual. As I said earlier, there have been appraisals submitted. The letter from Department of Land Management, Mr. Michael J. Bora, said that Land Management has no objection to this bill, and that also identifies the parcel and explains exactly what I explained earlier. And the maps were submitted. The appraisals were also submitted, Madam Speaker, and they are in the legislative record. So I hope my colleague supports this measure, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Senator Tom Ada, you're recognized on the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I certainly rise in support of the bill, and but I would like to just make an amendment to make a correction here on page 1, line 10. It should read the lot number 5223-1B-2-4 new, comma, Barrigada. And so the word Barrigada should not be struck through. The other...
One moment. So on that amendment then, are there any objections to put back the word Barrigada on line 10, page 1, after the word new? No objections? So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And of course, my colleague, Senator, I'm going to go ahead and mention his name, Senator Tony Ada, brought to my attention the fact that when this sale is made, when the sale of the Bucart Trail is made, the funds will actually go into the general fund. I believe that's the way it works now. And but this Bucart Trail really belongs to the Chamorro Land Trust. Now, I know we're not supposed to talk about a bill that hasn't been heard or something, but you know, we do have a bill that is being heard, having a public hearing next week to create a special survey fund, and any future sale of Bucart trails or fractional lots that that you could not use to construct on anyway, that all those funds will go into this special survey fund to be able to start accumulating revenues for to survey Chamorro Land Trust properties. But I would like to make an amendment so that then we start here now, and that the proceeds from the sale of this Bucart Trail shall go to the Chamorro Land Trust for the purpose of There is a specific account I would need to go in. I believe it's the Chamorro Land Trust Home Development Fund, which the law clearly identifies as the account, the fund that is used to develop infrastructure and to survey and all that. So I would just need a time to take a look at, identify which one that is.
Okay, Senator, we'll take a brief recess.
Okay, thank you.
The legislature is back in session. Senator Tamada, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So the amendment that I would have, which is being proffered by myself and Senator Tony Ada, should read on page 2, add a new sentence at the end of line 5 there, to simply read that the proceeds from the sale shall be deposited into the Chamorro Home Development Fund. That is an existing revolving fund that's in the Chamorro Land Trust, under the Chamorro Land Trust law, which is to be made available for the construction of infrastructure and for other non-revenue generating purposes, such as surveying. So at least we can put that money in there and begin building up that fund.
Senator, can you read it one more time, please,
Yes.
just to make sure the clerks has it?
So at the end of line 5 on page 2, we add the new sentence. Proceeds from the sale shall be deposited into the Chamorro Home Development Fund. Period.
Thank you very much. Does everybody understand the amendment? Clerks, are we able to get it? And can you please make sure that the clerks also get a copy of that amendment, Senator? So on the amendment, no objections? So ordered. Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on Bill 118 on the motion? There being none, so to send 118-33 to the third reading file without any objections. So ordered. Bill number 122-33. Senator Munya Barnes, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if I may, can I please move 122-33? I'm sorry, COR to the third reading, and if I can just briefly speak on it, please.
You may proceed, Senator.
Madam Speaker, Bill 122-33 is an act to appropriate funds from the fiscal year to 2014 hotel occupancy tax hot surplus fund to the Guam Visitors Bureau. And this Bill 122, Madam Speaker, will provide funds to GVB for the purpose of improving one park or attraction in each village, including village murals. Madam Speaker, as we prepare for Festback, we must not forget that every village will be showcased, and that there are parks and attractions in every village. These parks and attractions need to be maintained and improved on, not only for our visitors, but more importantly, for our people, our community to enjoy. Mayor Robert Hoffman, who is Guam Visitors Bureau's Destination Maintenance Committee chairperson, requested that we find some funds to provide each village for the more specific purpose of sprucing up the villages beyond what the mayors do regularly in preparation of Festback. We're all very aware that with the limited resources we have, we must be innovative in identifying funds to take care of our villages, and this amount, Madam Speaker, if approved by my colleagues, would be about 10,000 per village. It will directly affect our residents in a very positive way, and it is intended to be used so that each village can showcase at least one park, village, mural, or attraction that can be a source of pride for each village as we showcase it for the Festival of the Arts. Madam Speaker, I also want to note that based on working with this and Mayor Hoffman and the mayors, there were a couple of business folks in the community that said if a little funding source could be provided as seed money, that they will be able to at least help and support the efforts of the project in the village to showcase that attraction or improvement for that park, and also provide little resources to them additionally. So in this effort, working closely with the mayors and Mayor Robert Huffman, who's the chair of this, and also working with some community members and nonprofit organizations. They want to see this project come to full fruition. So I'm asking that my colleagues please help me support this effort as we prepare to host the 2016 Festival of the Arts. And you know, Madam Speaker, just for the listening audience, again, the Festival of the Arts, which Guam will be hosting, will start on May 22nd and May 16th to June 4th, and next May and early June. So, Madam Speaker, as time continues to be very close, I'm asking my colleagues to help me support the mayors and support this effort. Sijo Spasi.
You're welcome. On the motion, Senator Tom Adda.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I certainly, would always support whatever assistance we can give to our villages to beautify our villages. And, but I'm just a little concerned about, so we're appropriating $200,000, which comes down to about $10,500 for each of the 19 villages, to go out there and basically just, in general, improve, refurbish, restore, repair, or maintain one park or attraction per village, including village murals. And I'm just, it's kind of like, this is kind of a good example of the, patintiao, and, do what you can with it. But after we expend the $10,000, I don't know that we can go in there and say, here was $200,000 well spent, as opposed to saying, and maybe this is the difference in, some may suggest that I'm suggesting micromanaging, saying, here's $200,000 to the Guam Visitors Bureau to address a particular eyesore in a particular village, so that we can, take care of that and rectify it. But with this, I'm not sure what, it could end up just buying, bush cutters to achieve the repair and maintenance objective of the one park. So I'm just concerned about the fact that it's just so general. How do you measure that we in fact have achieved that objective? So, I'll support the bill. I'm just registering that concern. After we finish spending the $200,000, it's okay. So what? What do we do? And so, I just registered that concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. On the motion, is anybody else who would like to speak on 122? Senator Nicholas, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I too always support, making the village look nice. My concern, Madam Speaker, is recent market conditions with respect to the global economy, and the fact that we're tapping this resource from the surplus fund of the hotel occupancy taxes that's supposed to kind of be there for in the event that we need to start tapping into these reserves because of economic slowdowns. The markets have taken quite a dramatic hit just in the last month, and in some of the research that I've done over the years, there have been correlations, very clear correlations between our visitor arrivals and the performance of the capital markets globally. And so I'm just a little concerned tapping into this reserve fund with the economic realities being what they are. If we were in a more stable financial situation, with respect to the global economy, and particularly the capital markets, I would be more comfortable, but I'm concerned about the outlook. I'm concerned about the outlook with respect to the markets, and I'm concerned about how that outlook may translate into a potentially reduced number of tourists, or at the very least, a need for our tourism agencies to access this reserve fund for the purposes of keeping our marketing reinforced, so that we can keep bringing those visitors in here despite the global economy situation. So similar to the retiring speaker, I kind of just wanted to register that concern because, again, this is tapping from the surplus fund of the Guam visitors, the surplus fund of the hotel occupancy taxes. And that's supposed to be for us to have backup money in case things aren't going so great. So I just wanted to register that concern as well, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome, Senator. On the motion, anyone who wants the opportunity to speak on 122-33? There being none. Senator, do you want to close? Oh, I'm sorry. Senator Espodan. Sorry, Senator.
Madam Speaker, just a technical correction, and if you will, the Guam Visitors Bureau is the Guam Visitors plural as opposed to Guam Visitors possessive. I don't believe there's an apostrophe on the S. So just a technical correction on that.
Okay, thank you. So noted. Senator, one more time, is there anybody else who would like to speak on the motion? Senator Munya-Branch, you may close.
Sizos Masi, Madam Speaker, and I just want to say, as I appreciate the retiring speakers who brought up the concern in reference to how this resource may be utilized, I want to note for the record, as you and I know, as part of the discipline to assist in the efforts of Guam showcasing these Festival of the Arts to the rest of the world, and anticipating over 10,000 tourists and over 2,000 artisans, I think it's really important that we can engage with our village mayors and work closely with them. And there has been a realization from the chair of destination management in reference to what needs to be done to have an attraction in each village as the participant and as the tourists come and visit each village. And this was one of the ways that they worked with. And again, working closely with GVB and the mayors, this will be a success in the efforts to showcasing the Festival of the Arts to the rest of the world and inviting our participants with a very warm holiday. But I ask that it be moved to the third reading. Thank you.
On the motion to place 122-33, the third reading file, without any objections, so ordered. (123-33), Senator Frank Biagan Jr. Senator Frank Bloss on 128.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move to place Bill 128-33 COR into the third reading. I'd like the opportunity to speak to it, please.
You may proceed, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Bill 128-33 is an act to add a new Chapter 17 to 4 GCA relative to the creation of a Catastrophic Leave Pool Act of 2015. Madam Speaker, this came as a result of a discussion I had with various employees of the government with some ideas and basically how to be able to help some of our government employees who are experiencing what can be categorized as catastrophic illnesses. Those illnesses that basically can be characterized as well as maybe end of life. And what we're finding is that in some cases, some of these individuals, don't have the leave necessary to be able to, while it may be end of life and catastrophic, give them that opportunity, that chance, and not have to worry about whether or not they, they'll be able to continue to have that leave necessary to get the treatment. And while we have basically what is a leave sharing that can be provided, what that does though is that an individual, the employee, basically has to go around and ask and see whether or not there's individuals who may have some leave that they'd like to be able, that can be shared to them or provided to them so they can continue their treatment. In this bill, it provides it asks the Department of Administration to set up an account whereby employees of the government who may have, in what they believe may be more leave than it would be necessary for them, or have the kind-heartedness to be able to provide leave for individuals who may need that leave, but don't necessarily have a person specifically to provide this leave. The Department of Administration would set up a leave pool where an individual who has got a catastrophic illness can lean towards and go to be able to see if they can get the leave. Now, there's nothing in this bill that basically directs or mandates individuals to be able to provide or to donate the leave or to put the leave in. It provides also that the Department of Administration come up with those rules and the parameters for the program, so that first off, one may ask, what is catastrophic leave? I think that's something that a discussion that while it's there, we leave to the HR experts to be able to provide that type of definition. Again, it gives those individuals who are going through their some type of medical ailment and may not have the leave necessary to continue to get that kind of treatment, gives them an opportunity, another avenue to be able to get this leave. In closing, I'd like to thank my co-sponsor to the bill, my good colleague from Tumuning, Senator Espaldon. And I'd also like to make an amendment to add on my sister from Salapago, Senator Tina Rose Munia-Barnes, as a co-sponsor to the bill.
On that motion, no objection to add Senator Munia-Barnes as a third co-sponsor. So ordered. Mr. Vice Speaker, you're recognized on the motion.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, while I don't rise in opposition to this, I am a little concerned that a bill of such import takes less than 12 lines, or 14 lines. I think all of us have tried at one point or another to try to assist people with the medical leave exchange and the problems that are entailed with that. And trying to figure out whether or not an employee who is a $10 an hour employee can put in 100 hours of leave, and an employee whose salary is $40 an hour can take advantage of that 100 hours. There just seems to be a number of questions that haven't been haven't been addressed. I mean, I understand with catastrophic disease the need to address that, and I don't want to seem like I have no compassion. I'm just a little concerned that whether or not Department of Administration, Department of Public Health and Social Services, what the definition is going to be of someone who can take from this pool. And there just seems to be too many loose ends. What's the definition of catastrophic disease? I apologize that I didn't write any amendments to this, but there are just too many questions that I have on how this can be used. And I recall from my days when I was at the court about that discrepancy in salary and who can take advantage when the hours that are in there are hours for a different level of employee. And so I just register that. Thank you.
Senator Blas, do you want to attempt to?
Yes, Madam Speaker, and thank you. And I thank the Vice Speaker for those very valid concerns and issues. And I would ask, please, that we trust in recognizing, yes, there has been many attempts. But at the same token, I believe that there is the expertise that is, and subject matter experts within the Department of Administration and the Department of Public Health to be able to, as you see that in the section, basically, on page 2, it provides that, the Department of Administration shall promulgate the rules and regulations and recognizing the different, the different concerns. He does, my good colleague from PD, does, and I do recognize too, what are those parameters? Who's going to set this, as far as what the definition will be. Is it going to vary? Is it going to be different from what is currently accepted with regards to when an individual who is going to be able to provide the leave or get the leave? Is there going to be some disparity? Is there going to be some major differences in the amount the individual was making versus the amount the individual who donated the leave was making? And I believe and I trust that in the promulgation of these rules and the regulations to provide this, that these are things that are going to be looked at. We have the Family Medical Leave Act. We've got the different things with regards to the different regulations that are going to be we're going to have to recognize and we're going to have to adhere to. What this provides is that opportunity, is that direction, that policy to the Department of Administration, to the executive branch agencies to start to look into being able to establish this pool. This does not, I don't believe that in the passing of this legislation that all of a sudden then we have this catastrophic leave pool pool that is going to be, there has to be that process to put that together. And that's what this is. It's basically a policy. And basically providing direction to the executive branch agencies, Department of Administration, and Department of Public Health, and all the other agencies, with a human resource interest in this, to be able to put the rules together so that it can be, so that it can come to fruition. So I recognize the concerns, and yes, but again, I didn't want it to be too specific, nor too broad for that matter. It's very, very succinct in that look to establishing a pool sharing program for catastrophic illnesses.
Well, I just want to, I do have Senator Winnie Barnes, Senator Torres, and Senator Nicholas on the list, but maybe for those of you who are not familiar with it, is that in the committee report under the Bureau of Budget and Management Research, they had an extensive discussion on the leave sharing. So I think it's important maybe for those of you to get a copy to read it. Senator Munoz-Barnes on the motion.
Cedros Masi, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to speak and rise in support of Bill 128-33, and thank my good brother, the author, Senator Frank Claus, for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this legislation. I want to say, Madam Speaker, that based on what exists today and working closely with the government, that a need for this catastrophic leave and leave pool is very important. I have, Madam Speaker, in the last several months, received several calls and have had several appointments with several employees that work within the government of Guam who are going through cancer right now, have been certified, and really don't have a place to go. They don't have large families. Surprisingly, coming from a local Chamorro family, they don't have a large family, and the family that they have don't work within the government of Guam. And the mere fact that legislation is like this is being introduced and discussed shows to these patients who have been certified, who have been certified to have this illness, catastrophic illness, have know that there is a light at, maybe not at the end of the tunnel, but a light shining bright to show that we as policymakers are listening. And it has been very, very heart-wrenching to see these constituents come into our office asking for help, not just for medical donation assistance, but some way that they could help at least lift the strain of at least trying to get help while they go through their medical assistance for what they're going through. And this was asked of us, and my good brother has taken it with the assistance with Senator Espaldon to at least bring this up to this August body. I do want to say that I know that with the rules and regs being authorized here, and it having the need to go through the AAA process, I do know that a very large number of folks, patients and their families, will be very interested that this legislature has taken the time to listen to their calls. So I want to thank my brother for introducing this and giving me the opportunity to speak in support of, but more importantly, if I can ask my colleagues here to please consider this bill and give it a favorable decision. Cedros Masi.
Welcome, Senator. On the motion, Senator Torres, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In looking at this bill, Bill number 128-33, I understand the intent and I understand the sentiment behind wanting to address a pool of employees that perhaps need a little more assistance than another pool of employees. But you mentioned before the last speaker took the podium that you would like to refer us to the committee report and some comments that were provided by the Bureau of Budget and Management Research. Coincidentally, I had just pulled that up before you spoke. And what I want to point out to everybody is that we do have a leave sharing policy in place in the government presently, and managers also have different options to consider to address the particular needs of the employee. And I know, having worked in 3 government agencies, I understand the challenges. I understand the personal hardships from the ailing employee and the hardships on their family and the desire and the interest in helping to preserve their livelihoods as much as we can. But I also know that from the agency's perspective, there's also a responsibility for us to ensure the health of the agency. And so when you have something as broad as this legislation, and I know that the details we contemplate that the details will be worked out, but what I'm concerned about is we already have in place different things, federal acts, the Family Medical Leave Act. We've got our own policy within the government of Guam in terms of leave and leave sharing. And we also have the ability to determine if an employee, if the disposition of the employee is such that they're really more suited for medical retirement as opposed to prolonged leave within the agency. What I want to point out to my colleagues is sometimes, you know, we want to get brought into a perspective of one point of view or what is best for one, but in any legislation, it really is a balancing act. The health of one to the detriment of the whole, or is there a balance where you accommodate as best as you can the concerns and the needs of one without jeopardizing the others, without the peril of the agency? And in looking at this, it is a wonderful concept, but I personally am very concerned that it is a little overreaching, and that we do have in place policies that addresses both local in Guam statute and in federal statute that addresses these types of things, and there are many options. So I believe at this point, short of having some parameters for where this is going to go and not relying on DOA to come up with something, but having very stringent parameters, short of that, I think that this legislation, this proposed bill needs a lot of work. And I know one of our good senators brought up the inequity with leave sharing right now and how that's a concern for the government in terms of the bottom line. A person who earns $14 an hour can donate leave to a person who earns $24 an hour. You know, where's the equity there? There's always those corresponding things. And then what happens when someone on extended leave, you know, because they're on extended leave, you have to now procure overtime hours or incur overtime hours for somebody to cover those slots. So there is a lot of considerations that have to go in place when we look at something like this. And so we need to address the needs of our people and ensure that they have the livelihoods, particularly when they're ill. We have to be smart about our legislation and not enact something that will really cause peril to the agency at large. And so I think that I thank you for pointing out the Bureau of Budget and Management Research's analysis, because coming from a position of managing government agencies, those were very, very real concerns, and a lot of times it did affect the bottom line. And how do you make sure that there is enough to go all the way around? But you know, compassion is certainly something that is a part of all of us, and particularly in our community where we do see firsthand a lot of catastrophic illnesses. But I would caution against this bill right now. Perhaps it can have a little more guidance, and in that regard I would be more inclined to entertain it. But at this time I think we do have a lot in place that can address these particular concerns. Thank you.
You're welcome, Senator. On the motions, Senator Sir Nicholas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I actually rise in support of the bill. I reported this out of my committee, and we usually don't report things out of our committee until we're ready to have it here on the floor for us to be able to support. And the reason why I support this bill is because, as the author has mentioned, this bill basically mandates the promulgation of rules and regulations. Those rules and regulations will come back to this body. I do want to make an amendment here that we do require it to follow the AAA process. So if I could just make that be a technical amendment for ask the legal counsel to phrase it properly and insert it in the correct place, that the promulgation of these rules and regulations will conform to the AAA process. A motion, Madam Speaker.
We'll take a brief recess. The legislature is back in session after conferring with legal counsel. They would be able then to determine which section in the bill itself then to be able to put down that it follows the AAA process. So is there any objection to that amendment? No objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And so yes, I do rise and support the bill because basically what we're saying as a body is we do want some kind of a policy statement with respect to this kind of a leave pool. And by passing this bill, we basically will be directing the Department of Administration to craft this policy, and it will come back to us. And then we're going to be able to look over all these different rules and regulations that they promulgate, and then we'll be able to say, you know what, we like this, we don't like this. Or just like we did in the most recent session, we can disapprove the rules and regulations and go back to the drawing board. But I support the bill because I believe that it's a good idea for us to put together a policy with respect to this kind of situation. Because, you know, Madam Speaker, when we have a loved one who's dying, we all want to be able to spend time with them. The last thing we want to be doing is making work be the concern, especially when we can create the mechanisms in place for us to be able to have that dignity towards the ending of their life. But yes, we would want some tighter definitions. Yes, we would want to have some kind of an understanding as to how the leave going in and the leave coming out will be regulated. But I believe that all of that will be promulgated in the rules and regulations that will come back before this body, and then we can go through it from there and decide if there are things that need to be improved upon or if we're ready to go ahead and move the policy forward. But I believe that overall, as a general policy position, it's something that I can definitely support, and it's something that I was comfortable reporting out for session today. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome, Senator. On the motion, Senator Underwood, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also rise in support of this bill. And I think really, although we have all the rules and regulations, we have the opportunities for leave sharing for medical purposes that exist right now in our government. What this does is that it actually spares the family members or that individual who is suffering of having to go around and beg individuals, their colleagues, their friends, for leave to be shared with them at a time when they're already suffering quite a bit. So I really support this bill, and I believe that with the rules and regs that will be developed eventually, and if that goes to our body here for approval, that this would really address all the concerns that had been articulated by previous speakers in opposition to this bill. So I again would like to encourage our colleagues to support this bill in light of the fact that we will be reviewing the rules and regs that would be developed eventually. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. On the motion, are there any other speakers? Senator Blas, would you like to close?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I appreciate the dialogue that we had and the deliberation we had on the bill. I didn't think it was actually going to be this contentious, but it was great. And I appreciate the democracy and the democratic process that we have, because it does bring to light the different concerns. And all the concerns are valid. I just want to please, again, reiterate the fact that if this were to pass and if this were to be signed into law tomorrow, it doesn't mean that effective the day after, it's going to exist in what we're thinking it, because it has a process, and the amendment placed by the good senator assures that there is that process, that vetting process, so that we can cross the T's and dot the I's. And what this provides is a policy. Granted, yes, for some it may be viewed as a little too broad, but it's a policy. And it's relying on the subject matter experts. Surely, Madam Speaker, yes, we're elected by the people to be able to represent them, but at the same token, sometimes the fault and the fallacy that a lot of people have is that all the rules and all the regulations have to come out from us. There are subject matter experts. There are individuals who know the intricacies, the way to make things work, that we need to rely on. And what this legislation does, it relies on that activity. It relies on those people. I have full faith and confidence that if once this is done, the promulgation and the creation of the rules and regulations by those people who see this on a daily basis, who have to deal with this on a daily basis, who probably have the same ideas. And Madam Speaker, this wasn't something that the aha moment for me. This came as a result of discussions from many government employees, who's seeing that yes, while there is that leave sharing act that we have, like the good senator says, unfortunately they're left to have to bear the pain and go around and ask people. And granted that can still occur, and that will still occur, it gives them that opportunity, gives them that other avenue to be able to look at. And it gives other employees that place, that ability to be able to provide the leave. They may not know who it's for, but give them that opportunity to provide that. And there's going to be rules that are going to be set for that. And so, it's a policy. And yes, there are a lot of questions that still need to be answered as to how it's going to work. How does a person who is making $21 an hour, how are they going to benefit from an individual who leave, can they benefit from a person from leave that's donated by a person who made much less? If there is, what is that process? It's all these questions that may come to light, that still need to be answered, that is going to be answered before this comes into place. But let's give this the opportunity. Let's give that chance. Right now we're thinking the fallacy that the people, all government employees probably come from large families or have a large friend base in the government, that they can rely on. The fact of the matter, the truth of the matter is is not. There are some government employees that the only reason, they're the only family they have. They have no other person in as far as their family that's with the government. Or maybe too ashamed to be able to go around asking for the leave. Or may not have that ability to do so. Maybe this can help. Maybe this can help. So I think, yes, this is smart legislation. This is legislation that makes sense. This is legislation that says, here's the policy. We'd like for you to start on this. Put it together. Come back to us so that we can put our stamp of approval on it. It's not done with. It's not done yet. And for the contributions, I'd like to, please, and engage with great honor and pleasure to be able to ask motion that I also include Senator Mike Nicholas and Senator Risa Britannia Underwood as co-sponsors to this legislation.
On the motion, no objections, so ordered.
So with that, Madam Speaker, please, I'm asking my colleagues, despite and recognizing the concerns, you've got valid concerns. But let's trust in the process. Let's trust in the process. And know that it's going to come back here, cross our T's and dot our I's. But it's a great way to start to be able to help to get that help that's needed by many of these individuals that go through this. So with that, Madam Speaker, I move that this bill be placed in the third reading file.
On the motion to place 128-33, the third reading file, without any objections, so ordered. Bill number 1, can we take a minute recess? The legislature is back in session. Senator Tom Atta, you're recognized on Bill 138-33.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that Bill 138-33 COR be placed in the third reading, and I'd like to discuss it.
You may proceed, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, what Bill 138 does is it just basically establishes that any rezoning of property really should, regardless of whether it's property that was received from the return of excess lands or any other property, that it really should all follow one's separate procedure. So as it stands right now, the way the law reads is that the rezoning of federal excess lands pretty much kind of has their own separate process, different from the other rezoning process that we have. On top of that, the existing law is really somewhat vague as to who has that, who is authorized or who has the right to go in and seek for a higher zone change on returned excess lands. Because the way the law reads right now, it says that subsequent to the return of land by the government of Guam, the landowner may then apply for a higher zone designation. And so there's been some confusion as to, well, if that original landowner sold the property, does the new owner now, can he still seek a zone change? Whereas there's been times that it's been interpreted that it's that original, it has to be the original landowner. So basically then what the what Bill 138 does is just makes it very clear that the original landowner and all subsequent landowners may apply for a higher zone designation by applying with the Department of Land Management Planning Division and then processing their zone change through the existing rules, regulations, procedures, and policies to obtain approval for their zone change. And so, so that what this bill does is it really takes away any possible confusion as to, one process for return excess lands and another process for all other lands. Now it's all lands that are being sought for rezoning will follow just one process. So that's what Bill 138 does, Madam Speaker.
Senator, can you clarify? It says here federal excess land, but then you said all lands, or is it all federal excess lands?
Well, it'll be actually federal excess land. So under the existing law right now, under Section 61-217, which pertains to federal excess lands. So the amendment we're making is that with respect to federal excess land zoning, it is saying two things. One, the original landowner or subsequent landowners may apply for a higher zone change. And secondly, those particular types of land that have been returned as a result of a federal excess land return will now follow the process for zone change, which is an established process.
So it's strictly for federal excess land zoning.
Well, and with respect to this here, but there are for rezoning purposes. So what Bill 138 does is it clarifies what is the rezoning process when it comes to federal excess lands. And it's saying basically you follow the existing rules, regulations, and procedures pertaining to zone change requests. Okay.
Thank you, Senator. On the motion, does anyone would like to speak on Bill 138?
I'm sorry.
You may
if I
continue.
may, just one more thing. The existing law right now is kind of limiting also because the existing law says that if that landowner of the returned excess land goes in for a change, it says that he may apply for a higher zone designation up to a zone designation consistent with that of the majority of land contiguous to the return land. So basically what it's saying is that if the property that I want to rezone is surrounded by R1 properties, that's the highest that I can seek a rezoning to. So, if I have an agricultural lot and I want to rezone it, I can only rezone it up to an R1. But it may be a case where you basically have all these residential homes, and it may be appropriate to zone this piece of property as commercial so that we can put in, let's say, a neighborhood store. But under the existing law, it's really limiting because it says that you can only apply for a higher zone designation up to a zone designation consistent with that of the majority of land contiguous to the return land. So what Bill 138 does is it removes that limiting condition.
Okay.
And so I ask my colleagues to favorably consider Bill 138 and support it. Thank you.
You're welcome, Senator. So is there anybody else who would like to speak on the motion? There being none, so on the motion to send 138-33 to the third reading file without any objection, so ordered. Senator Ada, you're also recognized for Bill number 140.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move that Bill 140-33 COR be placed in the third reading file, and I'd like to discuss it.
You may proceed, Senator.
And so what Bill 140-33 does is it pertains to the issue of that whenever government-owned real property is to be sold, leased, or subleased, exchanged, or otherwise transferred, it requires the approval of the legislature. And then that same law that exists right now, Untitled 21, GCA, Chapter 60, Section 60.112, it exempts this requirement of having to come down to the legislature when the land, the property in question pertains to, well, this is the Land for the Landless program, residential leases by the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. So right now, Chamorro Land Trust, of course, can lease out residential lots for up to 99 years, and it can do it on its own authority without coming down to the legislature. Everything else has to come down to the legislature for approval. And so what Bill 140 does is there on page 1, line 17, what it does is it includes the leasing of subsistence agricultural land and subsistence aquaculture. And the reason why we're putting that in there under the Chamorro Land Trust program is that your residential lots, your residential lots are really small lots that go from 10,000 square feet to, if it has sewer line, up to no more than an acre. In the case of subsistence agricultural land or land for subsistence aquaculture, those properties also are limited in size to, I believe, anywhere from a half acre to an acre. And so we by putting this in, I think it's really makes a lot of sense that Chamorro Land Trust be given the authority to issue the leases for these small properties. Otherwise, I mean, if leases for subsistence agriculture or agriculture has to come down to the legislature, which right now is required by law, we'll be inundated down here. So I think given the fact that we're just talking about small pieces of land in the Chamorro Land Trust inventory, I think it'll be prudent to give that authority to the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. And so I ask my colleagues to go ahead and favorably consider this bill to facilitate the work of the Chamorro Land Trust Commission and allow it to be able to issue out these leases on its own authority. Thank you.
You're welcome, Senator. On the motion for 140, anyone want an opportunity to speak on 140? There being none, so on the motion to send 140-33 to the third reading file without any objection, so ordered. Senators, we're going to recess until 2 this afternoon, and this afternoon we will be taking up, of course, 2 of the bills from Senator Frank Ogden and Senator McCready. So we will be recessed until 2.